Becky, and I work in the children's room, but if you are needing some kind of recommendation, I would suggest that you read all the Neil Gaiman you can. He's one of my favorite authors, and one book in particular that I really liked, it's called Neverwhere, and we do have it on the Libby app, both in e-audio and on eBook. And if you get the chance to listen to it, I would suggest doing the audio version. Neil Gaiman actually does the narration, and he's incredible. So I would recommend it because Neil Gaiman is just really, really talented at like interweaving fantasy and realistic elements in his stories. He also has a great sense of humor. And in this book in particular, you follow a character named Richard Mayhew. He's just an ordinary guy, and he does one kind act of helping someone who is bleeding on the street. And that act kind of spiraled him into this fantasy world, a place called Neverwhere, which is in kind of the cracks and shadows of London. So it's a good kind of exploratory adventure story, and definitely in the fantasy realm. So hope you enjoy.
I'd like to recommend the book, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. I read it a few months ago and really enjoyed it. It's a historical fiction book that takes place in Troublesome Creek in Kentucky. It's about a woman who is interesting for a few reasons. She has blue skin. She's part of a very small population that had a disease that made her skin look blue. Really only occurred in a small area. And she's also a traveling librarian as part of Roosevelt's Pack Horse Library Project. So she delivers books to people in the rural areas of her home in Kentucky. So it has a little bit of historical element, it has some romance, has some conflict, so I hope you enjoy it.
The book I have is Exhalation by Ted Chiang. It is a short story collection. He writes science fiction short stories, and he's an acclaimed author. He's won multiple Nebula and Hugo Awards. And what's great about his science fiction stories is they're very accessible. A lot of times people hear science fiction and they're scared off. He explores very relatable themes. A lot of it's about how technology makes our lives better and sometimes how it makes our lives worse. There's a lot about determinism in it, and my favorite story in it is framed in a similar way as Arabian Nights. It's stories within stories, and it deals with time travel, and it's just fantastic. It's the first story in the collection, and it set it on a super high bar, and luckily the rest of the stories in the collection are great too. It's available on Overdrive as both an ebook and e-audio. Again, it's Exhalation by Ted Chiang.
Today I'm going to talk about Room, originally a book written by Emma Donoghue. Very great book, written all in perspective of 5-year-old Jack. Jack and his mom have been living in an 11-foot by 11-foot square shed since he was born, and before that, unbeknownst to Jack, his mother was kidnapped by a man named Old Nick. She's been held captive for years with no one knowing where she is and no way of escaping. When sudden circumstances change, it's up to Jack to try and save his mom and escape into a world that he's never known. The movie is available on Canopy and it's free for you to watch. I highly recommend it. It is rated R, so probably not a family-friendly film, but if you're looking for a good drama, some suspense, some laughs, and reason to cry, this movie's for you.
I chose book 10 of the Virgil Flowers series by John Sanford. This series is actually a spin-off of Sanford's Prey series. Virgil Flowers is a detective with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And in this book of the series, Deep Freeze, he's called to the small town of Tripton, Minnesota, after the body of Gina Hemmings is found frozen solid in the Mississippi River. How did Gina die? She was last seen on a cold Thursday night in January at the first meeting of the Tripton High School Class of '92 25th Annual Reunion Committee meeting at her own house. The next time anybody saw her was late Saturday afternoon when a fisherman pulled her body frozen solid out of the Mississippi River. How did she get there? You got to read the book to find out.
Today I'm going to talk about An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is one of my favorite books, and I'm so excited that the fourth one is eventually coming out later this year. But so the story, what I really like about it is that it has a strong heroine, and I really love the themes of the book as well. So you follow the two main characters are Laya and Elias, and Laya her brother's arrested for treason, and she teams up with rebels who are trying to overthrow an unjust government in order to break him out of prison. And then there's Elias, who he's a part of that government, and he doesn't want to follow what he's being told, the rules that he's being told to enforce. And so they're both trying to work outside of where they were born. And it's a really great story, and you should check it out on Overdrive.